Yeah, he's supposed to call me tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And,
Okay. I know, and then, but sometimes I'm glad it is because then I just get fired up there, because otherwise it just calm down over it. And it's, I'll calm down when this is all resolved. Somewhat. It's been a week so far. Jen, did you by chance get a call from the Corvette Club today? No. Okay. I'll see if I can track down the number of all that stuff we've got.
I may have it, I did talk to a car club
Mhm.
a month ago.
I think that was looking back on the Royce school.
Could have been.
Are you mixing up your Rolls Royces with your Corvette
Oh, for shame.
and your Porsche and your Rocky Mountain and your Shelby?
Where's the Jaguars? The Lamborghinis.
Okay, I'll see if I can track it down, because I want to keep you on so that not
just FYI,
so
also February,
it's over.
well, yes, but February lodging taxes are coming in pretty steadily.
All right.
So they're not all waiting to the last.
Nice.
Oh, that's great.
Have you gotten all of our businesses to get the proper licensures over?
But, there's a couple, what they reported to the state for January and what they reported to me for January. A huge discrepancy. So I still, they're working on it. I called them and they're working on it. They sent me some emails. Part of it is, and I don't know why they do this, but they, yes. Wow.
What about phone?
To be continued.
Yeah, that's it.
Part of it is. See,
Okay, how's Aaron?
but why would you?
I think at the time changes throwing people off, they're usually a
Mm.
couple more here.
Well, power would be a very powerful entity.
It has that potential, but misdirected energy is what I would. Hey there, Rob. We're good. Good to see you.
Trouble this.
That phone was almost.
Yes.
Oh, speaking of. Yep, speaking of.
But. I was hoping they could use their town's power.
I just don't see why not.
One of the many perks besides that nice company car you got.
Right? You get so few of perks.
Yeah.
Not on the porch.
It's a, I figured it's gonna be a long one this summer. Well.
I left my water at Susan's car.
Is there a bottle?
Downstairs. Yeah.
Do you mind if I grab one?
There's some cold or some other one.
I deserve lukewarm, that's what that is.
Dry bread, warm water. What do you think this is? The Ritz?
That it is not.
Oh.
Well, Bob, PJ's dumping me for a couple of weeks. She's gonna go see the Puerto Rican side of the family down in Jacksonville.
Oh, really?
On Friday, yeah. But she's writing down her marching orders, so I know what to do to take care of the church.
Just you know your instructions, so there's a couple.
Well, I usually do the floors and stuff in there anyway, so. But she'll make sure it's a schedule kind of thing.
Oh, not fast and loose.
Okay. And that way when she calls, I can say yes.
Heather, oh, great to see ya.
Is that Jennifer or hopefully I can leave it just anyway on there?
No,
It's all good. Another good.
Okay, I have a family Zoom meeting, so.
okay.
The families. Yeah. Which family? Oh, all right. Usually find out about these things. Is this yours? Mine's here. This is the attorney.
I think that's all yours.
I didn't study as hard as this guy, so I'm just be here.
Well, there's.
You had your.
There's.
I know.
want to take out.
Okay.
Okay.
My notes.
Hmm.
Hey, Barry.
Hey there, Jerry. Good to see you.
Pardon?
Good to see you.
Yeah, you do. Thank you.
Oh, no worries, brother. No worries.
Yeah. I think we got a new backhoe.
Gotta have the right people to do the job.
Number 7, boys with toys. Well, yeah, but I think we got a good one. Relative to how much we paid for it.
Well,
Didn't you get the call?
I got the call, and if Rick was the sales guy, it was sold, you know, shortly into the call. You didn't have to work on it.
Right, it's fire sale.
Yeah, it's. Like, well, I didn't budget. So
I was just about to say. That's how that worked. That would be, I know there's things we're trying to find a deal. I mean. It's, we don't do, you know, idiots, equation. Both sides. We definitely need something for streets. I think it leaks. You got to. You don't want to, wait for someone.
Anybody is.
Yeah. We do.
Yeah. I know, it's-
So that, yeah. Now I'm gonna sit by that.
Very good. What are you doing, Jerry? We got the quorum. We just need Rick and Jerry.
Yeah.
He's somewhere.
We had to move the- Have a family list.
Didn't do anything. Jerry.
It's good person that.
Gave you a full.
Because.
You bet I did. So when it in my.
It was good for me.
I thought we needed it to. Okay. On my clock, it says it's 6:02 p.m. on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. And I'd like to call the meeting of the Georgetown Board of Selectmen to order. Let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and the geek in me compels me to announce that it's Pi Day. Yeah, so we have chocolate instead. So let me call, do roll call. I am Lynette Kelsey, police judge. Rob Connell.
Here.
Dan Powell is not here. John Jennings.
Here.
Paul Hinton.
Here.
Mary Sid. And Rich Barrows.
Here.
Wonderful. We do have our quorum. Agenda approval. Let's go ahead and talk about, we're adding 3 things. So Rick and I discussed this earlier today and decided we needed to lighten the load a little bit so that we're not here until midnight. So we are proposing to delete 2 items from our published agenda, and that would be agenda item number 4, which is ordinance number 5, series 2023. This is regarding the mixed use buildings in Gateway Community District. And then agenda item number 6, we'd also like to delete, which is ordinance number 1, series 2023. And that's regarding affordable housing. I don't see the emergency nature in either of those. Yes, they're important, but And that leaves us a little bit of room to add, 2 letters of support, one of them for the Clear Creek Animal Shelter and one for CML. They have requested that we look at some legislation that could affect, state legislation that could affect the town of Georgetown. And then we also need to add an executive session, and this is for a conference with the town attorney, town administrator, and appropriate staff to receive legal advice concerning pending litigation, the capital prize mine quiet title suit. So, anyone have anything else to change on the agenda?
I'd like to move the police report up so the police officers aren't here the whole time. Early,
Okay,
not because I'm afraid of them.
no, they've got things to do.
24/7.
I see no reason not to do that.
Southern talking sternly to John Brick for the meetings.
So, okay, that's fine with me, is it?
It's okay with me.
Okay, let's,
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye. All right, that was unanimous.
Lynette, when we do get to item number 4, which I realize we're taking off because that's a public hearing. When we get to that, I'll just ask for a motion to continue the public hearing to the next date.
Okay.
Make a little record of that,
Okay,
but we don't have to do that.
okay. All right. Making the notes. Okay, next we have audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. Who do we have? Yes. If you could state your name and where you live and
stay right here. You don't have a seat anymore. Yeah, that's okay.
that'll be fine.
And forgive me, I still throws a little rock and being outside a lot today. That struck, anyway, so I'm fine now. All right, my name is Gary Fabianic and I live at the top of Skyline Road at 1720. I've been living there for 28 years now. When I bought it in August of 95, the house was fairly run down. But since then, I've worked magic and it's become a fine place to live. Except for the winds that can rock the house, the road, which periodically deteriorates the well past quality, and water. The first winter I lived there in January of 96, my service line froze. Being a rookie to mountain living, I was clueless and in a panic, but I wasn't daunted. I learned quickly. Old Sparky Redline came up and melted me out, and he explained to me about the necessity for using a drip system during the winter months. My line closed once more after that, and from those experiences, I learned that a drip system is inadequate and that I need to keep open a pencil-thick flow when not using water for a length of time, like at night and when gone for more than an hour or two. I also learned that there are 2 essential ways to melt out a line. Heat conductor vis-a-vis a welder and a hot water jet spray. And from that, I learned perhaps the most important lesson. It is far cheaper to pay Mary extra bucks by flushing clean water down the drain than it is to pay an exorbitant price for the melting out service and to experience the major inconvenience of not having running water. I used to feel guilty about that, but over time, I've become a hard-nosed realist. I figured the town doesn't care how much water I pour down the drain. Why should I? I thought I had seen it all in my 28 years here in Georgetown, but I have now experienced something new. The water main at the top of Skyline freezing solid. That happened 10 days ago, and despite valiant effort by Brian Zabelt and his crew, I still lack running water, a situation I described in my brief note to Rick, asking for a waiver for March's water refill, and I believe you all got a copy of that. What, though, is frosting me is knowing that if the town had done its job and maintained the road in a substantial way, this would not have happened. For a quarter century, I have fussed about the condition of the road, not only about its ongoing deterioration, but also how it can be a challenge to negotiate due to pinch points and inconsiderate people parking their vehicles every which way they want. That makes it like threading a needle to squeeze by them in snow-packed conditions. I say all this because the time for reckoning is upon us. Skyline needs fixed, not with a patch or a Band-Aid, but substantially, from grading and widening to covering it with asphalt. I submit to you there are two types of roads, paved and unpaved. Picture what happens to moisture when it falls on pavement, and what happens to it when it cools up top of dirt road or cascades down the road if it's a hill. We, not just us living up on Skyline, but we, the town, have a short-term and long-term problem to address with Skyline Road. Brian and his crew are doing yeoman's work to solve the immediate problem. But unless the town acts and gives Skyline its long past due attention, this will repeat itself. And as yours, Sandy, ever taught us, those who don't learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. I do want to thank Rick and recognize Rick for immediately stepping up and acting when he was made aware of the problem. And I also want to publicly acknowledge Ryan and Carl for their diligence for keeping the generator that is warming the ground fueled, as well as for toting 5-gallon buckets of clean water that weigh over 40 pounds from Pam Hayes' place to my driveway, where this 73-year-old man has them up to his kitchen and bath areas. And I'm grateful that my power and heat have not gone off. And if my house hasn't caught on fire, or had it, the ice jam hydrant across the street would have been no use. I'm asking you, as trustees of the whole town, to forgo mine and my neighbors' March water bills. For me, this has come with financial costs, including buying drinking water, although I'm in good shape now due to donations. Thank you, Rich. Showering at the rec center, and now in all likelihood doing laundry at the laundromat. And the gas I use to take care of those needs. I also ask you to begin planning and budgeting now for a permanent fix on Skyline this summer, in addition to the water issues and the road itself. In closing, I thank you for your time and all you do to help Georgetown become a better place. And I'd like to give you a homework assignment. Each time you turn on your water or flush your toilet, imagine how life would be if you couldn't do that for a substantial length of time. We take so much for granted. When you get home and go like this and go, what if I can't do that for 10 days, 2 weeks, or a month? Because that's what I'm dealing with. Okay. And I know neighbors have had it, and this is an ongoing problem up on Skyline. Ongoing. Almost every house freezes. And the only way we can prevent that from freezing is to flush water down the drain at exorbitant rates. And then we end up paying for it if we go to 7,000 gallons. It's not right. It's not ethical.
Yeah.
That's my spiel. If you got questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Thanks very much. Rick is very much aware, and I think we can figure out a solution. I hope so. Anyone else for audience business?
Same thing, Debbie Butler, our pipe moved in November of 2018, in January of 2019, we were unaware of the dripping thing. And our pipe goes from the main to the our house. We still don't know where our curb box is. Quick Spalding came out and tried to thaw us and could get no connectivity between Bobby's house, people house across the street, fire hydrants. And so we had to call Rotor out of Blue River, out of Rack. They're the only ones in the area to do it. And that was like $889 to fix that. So Brian has a old timey welder. We gave it a shot for 5 hours the other day. And then yesterday I just went to Denver and I rented a 500 amp towable welder, and we saw ours in 2 hours. And then Elsa and Doug across the street from us, they've been without water since February 4th.
Okay.
And so we hooked the welder up over there, and after 7 hours they have water again.
Okay.
So, and then we tried with Jerry today, but it just you know what, I have another date.
Great.
Do your address? I need to the.
Again?
Sure.
Hmm.
I'll help you out.
Okay.
Yeah, today. No water.
And after I heard, came a neighbor, he told me that Jerry and Travis and everybody was frozen up there. I went from a regular dripping to a trickle. And, left the house for 12 hours, came back in, and was frozen. And,
Okay.
so unfortunately, my neighbors, on the corner, Eric and Joanne, on the corner of Main and Skyline, were kind enough to let me go down and fill up my water and take a shower there. And so, caught up on laundry last night because, it was good water, it was great, but. And I just don't know where my curb stop is, and now that, I hear from somebody that is the, it wasn't Ryan, but somebody that was bringing diesel fuel to that thing out there. That contraption, and, it says it's the owner's responsibility to know where your curb stop, where your curb box is. Like, how, it's like, and I mean, they come out and they try to locate it, Elsa and Doug, they jackhammered last year, just 4 hours trying to find theirs and never found it. And they just did the map bonding, trying to use it's around here, but it was frozen then, and it's like, and I don't know what the code is. Can you tell me what? Is it 4 feet? I've heard 4 feet. The water main needs to be down 4 feet. I've heard 6 feet. I'm complaining that where Jerry is, that things are being done the right way back then. And they're probably 6 feet since it was so wide, but I'm pretty sure we're 4 feet.
Okay. Well, rather than try and answer things off the cuff like that, let me put you, make sure you and Rick get in touch, and we'll add it to the list, and we'll
I'm
see what we can do.
Concerned about my water bill.
I sure do.
Make up the water bill and kept my heat on 55 for the last 12 months just to make, but
Okay.
I like it fast.
And Pam Hay has run a ton of water through February. I know she talked to you. I'm not quite sure what the situation is. But I'm with her that the reason there's still water flowing at least up to the top is because of her doing that.
Okay.
The problem is that I don't believe that main is 6 feet under, which it should be, especially at the top. I know from talking to John, who used to run the water department here, that it's probably more like 4 feet, and it's a dead end. So we don't get circular there.
I'm aware that
and
it's
then
not.
only me and then Travis next door, that water does not move heavily through there. So we need some major fixes up there, folks.
I'm concerned too about the timeline. You say you're gonna come dig up the street and fix all this stuff. I think we'd like to know.
Of course.
When it's thawed, I know when
Of
it's
course.
thawed and it's spring.
So, yeah.
Summer.
Right. So audience business is limited, so let's go ahead and extend the further discussion outside of the meeting, and we'll make sure we address all of these issues. So, anybody else for audience business? Yes.
I'm also Hinkley, I'm on 1745 Skyline, I'm same issue.
Okay.
I already said it, I just kind of wanted to come here and see, if there's any plan in action and just continue.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you so
And
much.
the generator worked for us for 7 hours, so. it was
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. All right. Very good. Anyone else for audience business? Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Next we have the payables. The payables that we have in front of us tonight are from February 24th through March 9th, 2023. Anybody have any questions or comments on the payables?
I have one question.
Yes.
The auto repair for the water wastewater truck, was it the total amount in both? Did you just split it down the middle?
It's split it down the middle, yes. So there's 2 bills for that. One is a reimbursement to Ryan because he paid for the deposit out of his own pocket. And then the other one is the remainder, which is 3,000 split down the middle. That the check won't be released until it's completed, but we don't have an account, so I thought I'd put it on this one. Just so we have the check ready to go when the truck is ready.
Is this a truck that we need to think about replacing? Is it starting to fall?
He looked to replace it and there is just nothing. Used vehicles are very expensive right now and he thought this was a better route to go.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the payables?
I'll make a motion to approve the payables dated February 24th, 2023 to March 9th, 2023.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the payables. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful, that was unanimous. Next, we have the minutes from our last meeting, which was on February 28th, 2023. Any comments, questions, corrections for those minutes? I had given Jen just a couple of things. I think I missed one that I should have given to her, on page 4. Item number 9, under those the lodging tax questions that we were running through, the very last sentence should have probably the word does at the end.
Last sentence of the paragraph on the page.
No,
Last-
number
oh,
9
9 last sentence in the whole,
in that section,
okay.
the word does
Okay,
probably makes it read better.
all right.
And then on page 5, under the Strauss Park Refresh Project, I had brought up the need to revise both the contract for Bob Hamilton and for Ryder to change the scope of the work that they're being contracted for, and that just needs to be mentioned in there. So. Okay, any other comments or corrections? Who would like to make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to approve the minutes dated February 28th, 2023 as amended.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the February 28th, 2023 meeting as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that was unanimous again. Thank you. So new and unfinished business. Let's start off with the police report. Please. Marshall Williams.
That seems like me. Thank you for moving it up. This will help something. I believe everybody has a copy of a document I put out with some basics of the 2022 year in review. What was requested. Town administrators let me know, and I've had the good fortune of not having this being requested before, so I piecemealed it and put something together. Hopefully, between the document and what I can answer will be sufficient. So, would you want me to read the 3-page document, or were you looking more just to comment on it?
I think
Paraphrase it.
paraphrase would be good.
You read it?
The best of? You have the best of? The hits. Just the hits.
That is the 2 pages.
That's not-
Okay, I'll look at it, see if I can remember. Paraphrase it. First, I went over staffing. We are all pretty aware of how our staffing went for 2022. Started the year off with just 2 officers, with the 3rd candidate starting his post-required training through the academy, which the town incurred the bill for. He completed the training satisfactorily. Unfortunately, the obligations of the job were not what he expected, and it wasn't going to work. So he resigned shortly after completing the training. as I put in the document, he did not fulfill his obligation to the town for giving him the training, but he did fulfill his financial obligation to the town and is already completed paying that off. To the best of my knowledge,
Yeah,
yes. So we're satisfied by the contract that was written. Everything was fulfilled. Unfortunately, it left us still short of an officer. About the same time, Officer Sergeant Gaskins made the decision to return. We're happy to get him back. He's very useful to the agency. And at the same time, we had Officer Major resign. We work in all kinds of strange directions. That is our staff. Still looking to hire somebody. We get infrequent candidates applying or making themselves known. We lost 2 of the candidates due to a not overly stringent background check. And so they're not viable candidates anymore. The 3rd candidate found out that working for a community like Blackhawk was paying him closer to what we're making as seasoned officers rather than fresh out of the academy. So we're starting at ground zero again, looking at candidates, have to go from there. After I talked about that, I discussed the numbers on activities. I pulled those from our CAD system. Responded to 2,091 dispatch calls for service. That's not including just officer initiated contacts of all kinds of varieties. They've been everything from minimal to nothing absolutely significant as far as homicides and such as that, but big enough things that the police department still is demonstrating they need to be here. Good deal of traffic. Most of our traffic is obviously on Argentine Street or I-70 frontage road, access road is whatever they want to call it, and then they think they're on Interstate 70 and would rather travel that speed there. Still, with all of those contacts that we made there, at least close to 50% of them resulted in verbal warnings, so we don't become known as a speed trap. So we have that. Staffing wise, I'll touch back on that a second. We are looking and beginning to cross-train and transition our community service officer, Tim Collins, into a police officer position. And all the qualifications he's demonstrated his usefulness. Sergeant Gaskins wrote a very stellar inter-office memo recommending this step, and I don't think there's anybody in disagreement of it. We're going to make sure we get him retrained to Georgetown Police Departments rather than any other agencies that he's worked for. However, we can't find any good reason not to with minimal stigma attached. I'll leave that as a eyebrow raising statement. Our vehicles, we're dealing with the same vehicles. Historically, from what we have been driving, we should be happier than sin. However, we're hard on the vehicles and they take a lot of wear and tear. They're into their warranty, complete warranty period was up at the beginning of February. I cycled them through the dealership and had everything and anything that was either under warranty or got all of the pickup trucks at least up to snuff as best we could. Taking care of anything on, they don't call the recall, but consumer items that were addressed with little or no cost to the town. There still were other issues that once you get over 50,000 miles on the vehicle, I know this from my own, you have to start putting money into them. So try to keep those in check. We're still driving the older vehicles, the Charger, which we purchased used with 100,000 miles on it. They put some money into keeping it up and running. And it gets as much use as any vehicle, which is saving us a lot of miles. One of our new fleet pickup trucks. And the good old Trailblazer is still running and still very useful to us. For all that we've done or not done to it. Yes, I've known to see it around right here. So, I think my 5 minutes are up for audience.
We didn't, you're not limited.
Okay, so let me see if there's something else on the third page, but I didn't address. Goals obviously are continuing to try to get more complete in staffing. We have one unopened position. I've had people approach me thinking the code enforcement officer position is going to be available once we transition Ken Collins to a police officer position. However, we don't really have that position outlined in our budget, so if we can hire a police officer, we prefer to do that. We'll have to get that some looking at and see if we can find somebody with the same kind of qualifications that the community service officer position call for. So. Oh, the good one, legislative requirements. Let's talk about police reform legislation. We are close to, we have our body cameras in the house. Before they can go into use, everybody has to be familiar with the policy, which I'm having our policy writer, our reserve officer, is also renowned for policy writing. He worked for state patrol for many years, writing their policy, and he's going through it with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that even the more updated legislation is being addressed rather than just copy and pasting any other agencies from their initial use of the body worn cameras. We have until July 1st to, as them being required for us, since we've never carried them before. And we will be more than sufficient somewhere in the next month. Training is scheduled. Our first initial training is scheduled for March 30th on their use. And by then we should have our policy in place. So shortly after, those will be in place. We did purchase a program on a test and evaluation back in the fall to satisfy the data reporting requirements. And basically it's an application that we can do quickly, easily. It's pretty complete. It generates reports for us to get to the state when requested, as far as all of our contacts, because they created the legislation, but nobody really deciphered how the reporting was supposed to happen, when, where, all of the rest of that. But this company decided to get their foot in the door, and it's better than most other agencies are using, which is a word-based document that I have no idea how they're going to search and document later on when requested for the information. So this program costs the town or the police department $25 a month per officer's use. So, but I think it's making it easier for us and those that see us using it. Like if they're just all waiting for somebody to create something bigger and better, that's going to be included in some of what their costs. I think that covers a little bit I know about what happened in 2022.
Okay.
Are there any questions to help satisfy this? I don't believe the attachment of the letter from Sergeant Gaskus was in your packet. Like I said, it was an interdepartmental memo that I wasn't going to make part of the full thing, but I can make copies of that for everybody.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question on communications. Are we up to the, was it 800 megahertz system? Or the new
Yes.
transmitters?
We are all of our radios in the vehicles and on our personal or portable packet sets are dual banded. So we can pretty much connect to everything. We're as up to date as there is on the radios. We don't have many of them, the best were, aren't even available, and they're, I think, the price to buy a certain number of them, when we're doing the communications board, with the whole multi-agency group being part of it, until they decided to change up some of the rules, which is still being revisited in 2023. We talked about, I just gave the board a heads up that switching the dispatch system is still being considered. Not just by us, by the county, by everybody. And we're continually, instead of having quarterly meetings, we're having monthly meetings and offering up new options to the county commissioners on how to do this. But we were unable to, the board was unable to fulfill any replacement radios. And the price is outrageous.
So 10,000 RPUs aren't there, so.
At least now, when they can fulfill the number that they were trying, well, you know, from fire departments, the number that they were trying to get was only going to replace a certain amount, and it was supposed to happen every year to replacing those radios. We'll see. They are making some new radios by Kenwood rather than Motorola that everybody was kind of interested in and are about having trust. So awesome. We'll see if those are in the future.
Thanks,
And after that, we might have to purchase our own radios again, rather than relying on the communication board. We'll see.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can you briefly share, maybe a little subjective, why I want you, which again. So the value that the enforcement that you perform out on 70 has to our community directly.
I can pretty much say our enforcement on Interstate 70 is next to minimal.
Your presence is there, so how do you feel that that's a positive piece for us?
What do you mean our presence is there?
The presence is there, I mean, you're there sometimes.
Mostly when we are on Interstate 70, it's because we're traveling somewhere or we're following a violator from in town. And that's going to be the best place to stop. We don't really, the only time we would be up on 70 is if we were doing something reactively, like getting a call about a dangerous vehicle or chase or something coming in this direction. We don't really go sit on Interstate 70 and do any enforcement. However, every time driving the vehicle with the lack of markings that I drive, every time I travel to a meeting or to get fuel or to the car wash, I generally end up having to stop somebody. And as often as not, their driving was so egregious that they're getting a ticket, which doesn't benefit the town at all because it's a state ticket.
No, I didn't mean in a financial way, I mean more for the greater good of law enforcement and protecting.
Yeah, we really don't do a lot of presence there unless we're requested to cover and assist one of the other agencies, being State Patrol or the county. Or again, as always, and what I don't see is ever ending CDOT and highway closures. I don't want to open that can of worms because you said you had a long meeting already. I don't know how that answered your question. Would you think?
Yeah, I mean, every now and then we dabble in commercial motor vehicle violations, and what that does prevent the trucks from coming down here, stopping on that bridge and catching fire, and potentially a hazardous material vehicle. And that's one of our greatest fears, is one of those vehicles coming and catching fire, and then the entire town will be impacted by, such a disaster, I would call it. So we do enforce that a little bit, and that just gets a message out to the truckers. If they're coming down past Georgetown, they pass the word to each other.
make sure you're doing the speed limit, go ride the brakes, and hopefully we can prevent something like that in the future. Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, thank God, and we aim to prevent it.
We don't have a lot of time. We really don't have the extra time to be spending up there, but that also makes a difference for the engine brake mufflers or lack of vehicles. Is if state patrol parks somebody at the bottom and the word gets out, it usually minimizes the vehicles to slow down further back. Unfortunately, the communication between the truckers isn't what it was a decade or two ago. They don't talk on each other on their radios and such, so they can't tell, hey, they're doing speed enforcement, everybody slow down well before we get to Georgetown. And then they still, the Jake brake noise is going to be never ending issue. But, yeah. Our time spent on Interstate 7 is no on the
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I just want to express my appreciation for the job that you guys do. You're so professional. I'm very, very grateful. Thank
Love to
you.
blow our horn and say we are probably the best in the county, so in the public meeting.
Thank you so much. All right. Next, we have a presentation on the Design Review Commission on the Historic Landmark District procedures. And this is going to be Cindy Neely.
Right. I'm not gonna stand up, but,
Speak up, though.
yeah, we'll speak up. I
Okay.
can something with that one. But I think that's a pretty common moment. I asked for this time, actually, if there are members of the planning commission here and some of our DRC members, and they're here to support the next discussion on ordinance 5. But when we left the last meeting, I think there was a sense of some of a disconnect between the Board of Selectmen and the Design Review Commission, and your piles of paper look at least as large as our piles of paper always look. So I think that it's pretty well understood that what happens here is that you're doing your jobs and we're doing our jobs. But those jobs really are connected and always has been. Many years back in this process, it was an annual event that the Board of Selectmen met with their commissions to just talk about processing goals. You know, they had a workshop and they met with the commissions to talk about processing goals. None of these commission members remember doing that. So that tells you how many years ago that happened. So that hasn't happened in a long time. I would recommend actually that that's not a bad thought. I understand your schedules are full, but that it's not a bad thought. And then I'd like to take 5 minutes of your time and do 50 years of history of the DRC in 5 minutes. That's okay with you, Rob? Don't look at me like it's.
No, I'm not running this meeting. It's next.
It is quickly possible because most of you know it. In the early 60s, the National Park Service was told that they, by the Department of Interior, that they were to look for various places in the United States that best illustrated certain historical themes that they had decided on. One of those themes was Western expansion. And so the National Park Service went to various states and found out various locations which would be exemplary towards the theme of Western expansion. And one of those spaces in Colorado, there were 6 of them in Colorado, and one of them was Georgetown, Silver Plume, and the gorge in between is what they, and that's how we got chosen to be a National Historic Landmark District. The town didn't raise its hand, Silver Plume didn't raise its hand. We got chosen by the National Park Service to be a historic landmark district, and that was essentially made official in 1966, and everybody was quite proud and quite delighted in these communities. The railroad wasn't rebuilt yet. However, there was at that time, as many of you know, in the years that followed, immediately followed that, was consideration of the Olympics in Colorado. And one of the concerns in the board of selectmen at that time, only 4 selectmen, only 2 wards, the Meadows wasn't here, and most of the Millside wasn't either. But the thought was, oh, we're a landmark district, that will help us. That will help us in the discussion of what might get built in our community for the Olympics. Well, what we discovered on the legal end was the National Landmark District protects you from the federal government at a certain level, but not anything else. In other words, the National Landmark District says that that must be considered by federal agencies or federally permitted agencies, like EXA, federally permitted agency, but it does not necessarily protect your historic resources at a local level. The only way to do that is to do it locally. So in 1970, this town considered Colorado's first, actually Rocky Mountain West's first townwide historic preservation ordinance. And in May of that year, that ordinance came before this board. There were only 4 selectmen, as they said. The vote was 2-2. And the police judge donned his hard hat, literally, donned his hard hat. There had to have been 60 people in this room, and they were shouting at each other. The board got pretty quiet, but they were shouting at each other. And passed the legislation that created the historic preservation ordinance in Georgetown and created at that time Historic Preservation Commission. Well, when you become that has evolved into a design review commission, simply be separated from the idea that you have historic societies with this, that, and the other. And what they're doing is it's townwide design review, and that better describes what it's doing. The boundaries of the district came along in 1976. They announced us without giving us boundaries. That was sort of an interesting kind of thing. The map and back view, I've given you a little variety of that. The outside black line, Rob was saying it's the whole town. It's the whole town. It's all of Silver Plume, it's all of the valley in between, and it runs all the way up to the Forest Service boundaries. It is the largest landmark district in Colorado. It's one of the largest landmark districts in the nation. And it leaves us with our ordinance, of course, only goes within our town boundaries. You know, our sense of responsibility, for some of us, makes it land and so on. But that's where it came to be. Well, when you've discovered you are a historic district, it's nice to know what your historic structures are. And so I put in your pack's map that looks like this. It's green, it's full of black numbers. And the tiny black numbers, there are tiny black numbers, and then there are numbers that are larger. The tiny black numbers are all of your historic structures. Now, this was done by doing a survey. The first survey was done in 1978. The town never funded any form of administrative assistance for the design review commission, still does not, but it does. So in order to complete a survey like this, yes, you call on people from outside because you're volunteers on the commission, but you don't have time to do it. The period of significance of this town was set at 1859 to 1893 to begin with, and then we pushed it to 1907, which means all the little black numbers were built before 1907. You cannot be a contributing structure to the landmark district without being in the time of significance for the landmark district, which is an interesting thing. Because obviously there are other buildings that are significant to us. And the day the commission has time, we will do a local list But we don't have that kind of time at the moment. This was done in 1978. Those numbers are registered with the Smithsonian. This district has the Smithsonian number of 5CC3. And so the numbers you see all would be preceded by 5CC3 point this, that, the next thing. The surveys change because sometimes historic structures are fall down, get bulldozed, get remodeled. So it was redone in 1995 by Barbara Norgren, who was in the business of doing that all over Colorado. And it got redone again in 2014. That time, the outside folks that we hired, except Tom didn't hire them, it was a grant. They embarked by CDOT because they were required to do some historic survey and paid by the State Historic Fund to upgrade all of the data for the entire district. And they said, you gotta do the whole district, take all your old surveys, put them all together. And so you're looking at the one for the entire district. There is the second page. I don't know whether you've seen it. It's probably on the back of the first page. And you will notice that they did that survey even on through the meadows. In the meadows, the structures were grouped. But they say as the future goes on, each survey will delve into more of what. Because from the national point of view, you become a potentially historic building when you are 50 years old. And that's their rules. So, however, we have to stick with our 1907 date, but locally we can say, look, we have the rest of the. When we complete the survey, every one of these little numbers has a form that describes the building, describes its historic integrity, and yes, it is possible to describe historic integrity. It has to, you know, to do original structure and size and form, materials and window placements, and good for whole list. Jen has this downstairs that you went and asked for one of these numbers. She can pull up that number and you can see the forms and the photographs that go with each of these buildings. Those then go to the state, and anything we've listed, anything that's been listed as contributing, the State Historic Preservation Office reviews. It then goes to the National Park Service, and the National Park Service reviews. And sometimes they disagree with our judgment of whether it's contributing or not. Sometimes we disagree with their judgment, and then we sit down and we literally have work it out sessions on how you do this. So we don't do this annually, but this thing is a huge tool for your DRC. This is one of the tools in the toolbox that really matter to us. Because what we're looking for when somebody applies for something, where does it fit on this map? What's in its surroundings? That's part of what we work with and what we need to know. Another part of our toolbox, however, is also the fact that the town, as you certainly know, has all these own areas. I gave you one of these maps too. What DRC did way back in the beginning is say, okay, we need guidelines. And the guidelines go with certain areas, and they are design character areas. Most of them are simultaneous to the zoning. I say most of them are because if you look at the historic district, the Hillside district and the Meadows district, it also extends up hillsides. And you would not necessarily want your designs to be the same on a hillside as they are on a valley floor. So you will notice on this map, you have historic hillside, you have Meadows hillside, you have hillside, so that there can be separate guidelines. The guidelines are based on this character map. So that you can have guidelines that pick a particular area. there's one spot right now that we sort of struggle with because there was a zoning change. And multifamily was added into the mill site. And it's sort of plops in the middle of a character area that was designed with residential. So we, as a matter of fact, just recently, we've been working through an application for an 8-unit apartment building in right in the middle of the mill site area. So but this is another one of our just very basic tools. And then there are guidelines. And after you've been to the Supreme Court once, in the 70s, it became evident that we really did need design guidelines, and so.
Well, that's what I was talking about.
This is our first set of design guidelines, folks.
Okay.
1979.
Okay.
One volume. It was. Everybody in Colorado who wanted a preservation ordinance called us up and said, send a copy of the ordinance. But a number of those places then hired people to help them with their ordinance. So they got design guidelines before we did, because we were traveling our own boat. And so when the Supreme Court said, look, you gotta be a little clearer. You have to put out guidelines. His late cousin and I borrowed things from Breckenridge and a couple of the other places who had borrowed our ordinance. And we borrowed back. And we wrote this little book, so be nice about it. Tell me. But this was our first set of guidelines. It was the year 79 was the year that the Supreme Court decision came out on the Southern Second versus on the town of Georgetown, which incidentally is the landmark precedent in Colorado for preservation. It's something that should really be proud of, actually. Because we won all we lost. Well, we did. We won the right to do an ordinance like that. What they told us is that we did not do sufficient guidelines. And so you stop and you do what they told you. That, however, has changed many times over the years. And if you were going to join the DRC now, this is what will be handed. I think she's recruiting. Yes. No, because over the 50 years, and yes, I've served on the DRC at different points in time in those 50 years. I did get to help author the letter that turned down the condominium and Governor Mountain, and I'm so proud of that. But then I got off for a long time, then I got on, then I got off. Like any body, any commission, like the DRC has done very well, and then it's commissions do that, any group does that. Except I would say the present DRC, who over the last, I was asking Joan how long she's been on, she joined the DRC in 2003. And I'm not quite sure how long I've been on, but in the last 6 to 8 years, it's a privilege to sit around the table with these folks. We have an architect. I mean, you all appoint them, but we have an architect who looks at things so thoroughly. Goes through. Everybody does their homework. Their homework is done. You come into meetings, you know what the applications are, you know what the guidelines are, you have read them. We have 2 contractors who have built whole houses in this town, and each of them has also restored houses in this town. The chairman of our commission is Joan, and she's a peacemaker. You know how important that is, and it's time to use it. Commission meeting. You recently appointed Betsy Blakesley, who is a PhD in American Studies and has a real track record in success at historic restorations. And we have the best project manager in Georgetown. He's sitting right there.
Yeah.
And he looks at things and figures out how they work. And then you got me in a loudmouth. So that, and I've hung around preservation in Colorado for a long time. It's an amazingly active commission. And I think that we would really look forward, because we have things I outlined in the process a little bit. You know, Jen has to do all of the applications when they come in to do, and she has to track them all, which means she's back and forth, she's doing the interface with the applicants, and she tracks what the commission does and then tracks it out the door. And Rick has to do all of the zoning sort of things so that all the zoning requirements are supposed to be taken care of before it comes to DRC. But then it comes to the commission, and we can use the tools that we can, our guidelines, to make the decision. But because our building inspection folks don't really want to inspect for DRC, this is an editorial, who is back there. Actually, we self-enforce, which is sort of crazy. I just hope that, and ask it in the future, that the design review commission can sit with the board of selectmen a little bit and talk about goals and talk about the future. So if there are any questions on all of this, I could be on 5 minutes, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I did have a question on the table that was provided in our stuff.
Benefits.
Okay,
Your benefits to historic preservation and designation. You're looking at it. Everyone,
Where's all this money?
what?
Where's all this money?
All this money is in your buildings in this town. And if you have.
Something you're paying this money, you're not paying this money?
No, we've already saw that. If you are a contributing structure in a landmark district, you are eligible, you don't have to do any magic things, you are eligible for grant monies for the restoration and preservation of your building. You are also eligible for tax credit. And over the years, those are the groups and organizations in this town, and I didn't include Silver Pearl, I didn't include other things. Those are the organizations that have received money, and you will see the towns there over and over again, the outline holes, this building, the fence around the park. This is one of the benefits to having, there, people say there are drawbacks, it's an infringement on rights, etc. But there are also some benefits to having this. And I thought you might like the table because it's really sort of interesting in a number of places. If you walk down Town Street, start up at Centennial Mill, grants received Centennial Mill, grants received Snetzer Building, grants received Outline Halls, grants received South Square, grants received Hotel de Paris, grants received Star Hook and Ladder Buildings, grants received a Mahaney House, grants received over and over again for the old school, grants received for the Presbyterian Church, grants received for the fence around the park. That's just House Street. It has been vital to the way we look, and it's all kinds of different agencies. It's not just the Georgetown or just the town, it's the church, it's a private owner, and actually tax credits on McClellan House. Tax credits on Eklund House over on Rose Street. I could do that on all of your streets through here. So those are the benefits. Our job, mine and these guys, is to try to be mindful of that's what we were set up to do, but our charge is to preserve that historic nature. And I just wanted to be clear how we do it and background.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Cindy?
To get these grants, Cindy, does it have to be a town-owned building
No, look at it.
for private houses?
Private houses can get, houses have to go through some sort of a, they have to have a song for 501c3 to pass the money through, but the grant on Iceland Anderson was, the Andersons own Iceland Anderson. It was a state historic fund grant. At that level, the private owner had to pay half the price. They can only get a grant for half. Half is better than none.
Okay. Okay, that was great. That was very informative. The table, I just admit to some confusion on the table because there wasn't narrative to go with it and there was no heading and I'm going, okay, I'm thinking, what's the time capture on this? And I'm,
If you look at the number of the grant, it says 9202.
Okay.
That's the
Okay.
year of this grant.
we just didn't have the key to decrypt that. Yeah.
But that's the year it's grant, because the fund came about in 1992 and,
Okay.
this town, Fairfield County is one of the group of few counties, and that if you looked at the state historic fund map, which you can bring up on your computer, there are about 6 counties in the state, over Denver, I mean, you could have named them, that have received over $7 million in grants. And Frederick's one of those, which is just sort of crazy. Because, we're little and all the rest of them are.
Would it be including the poor infrastructure grants that we've been actually getting?
No, this is,
Doesn't include
yes,
that?
this is just start reservation. Oh, it's over $7 million. It's just for this stuff.
Okay. All right.
Well, some of these. Right, are historic, I mean.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, DRC people. Do an awesome job. Okay, next we have ordinance number 2, series 2023. This is a second reading and public hearing. And this is an ordinance amending chapter 13.20 of title 13 of the Georgetown Municipal Code concerning service line requirements for accessory dwelling units. So do we go ahead and open?
Yeah, open the public.
Open the public hearing.
Yep.
As of right now, which is 7:07.
And if I'm right, you should have in your packet confirming that you've got the right one, but you should have further revision of the ordinance you saw last time. The ordinance you saw last time largely contained with some additions, the first memo that Craig Abrahamson had put together, and we've lost him. He's not in the room. His moment has arrived and he's not here for it. It's like getting the Oscar, but you're not there. Can you send someone to receive the Oscar? No?
Somebody's going to accept.
Cindy will be accepting. Thank you very much. Thank you. In any event, Craig revised his memo, which I think you probably also have, and it included a helpful table. And I thought about whether that table ought to make its way into the code, which we could do. But I felt that right now we have the code sections that have been edited. He and Ryan had further conversations, and his new memo, which I've incorporated here, memorializes those conversations, and Ryan has indicated, I believe that's right, Rick, that he's fine with it. So it's still first reading, or you say?
No, it's second
It's second.
reading. Yep.
So I think it's ready for second reading, unless Craig wants to suggest the chart ought to be in there, and I don't see him
Okay.
here to so suggest.
All right. Any comments from the public on this ordinance? Do we have anybody attending by Zoom that might want to comment? Okay. Anybody here? Comment?
And honestly, the chart's helpful. It says in chart form what the words already say. I'm always a little nervous about saying the same thing in two different ways, because if there's any difference, then it's okay, which one are we going to follow? on balance and thinking about the chart, I think that would be kind of a nice handout, or it could find its way into a handout that the town could use when articulating that to builders, et cetera, and applicants, so they wouldn't have to grind their way through, was it admittedly some kind of challenging legalese in the code. I'll tell you the better use of it, frankly. So,
I also lean in that direction simply because it goes into detail about mentioning, sizing of pipes and so on, which tends to go back to building codes, and building codes change over time.
Yeah.
And so then you have to be careful about, how you reference those codes. And if you start trying to spell everything out, then you have to go back and
fix it, yeah.
read,
All right,
other than just referencing the appropriate adopted code.
I think that's right.
Yeah. The only thing that after thinking about the situation that existing ADUs are under, giving them a limited time to bring their water lines into compliance, would be to suggest considering some kind of exemption if the ADU was created and it was done with proper building permits, DRC, all the permits that are required were obtained, and all the inspections that are required by code were done. I'm not sure that they maybe could be exempted, and then they would be required to come into compliance only in the event that their water lines failed. Then they'd have to bring things up to whatever the current code is. That was my only suggestion for an alternative to what appears in paragraph 2 of the
Letter B.
Yeah, section 1, letter B.
Yeah.
Um,
We can do that. I mean, that's a really long sentence.
I know.
You just described,
I
like
realize.
really long.
Anyways,
And I wouldn't be comfortable or confident that we'd get it right.
Mhm.
That maybe there's 2 ways to handle this. You could continue second reading and ask, I think in particular, Ryan and others, okay, from an implementation standpoint, are you going to be able to keep track of if this person has this kind of facility that was built at this time under this permit condition that was in compliance, and then later it fails, then they get this, there's a lot of dots that have to get
realize that.
connected, and no pejorative intended, but if just from an implementation standpoint, is that doable? That's one way of doing is continuing and getting reaction to that.
Wouldn't that thought though be consistent with, we're not knocking on anyone's door and say, because you built your house per permit, per code, per inspection, back whenever, and we only required this amount. But now the new code says this, we're not asking people to upgrade.
Correct.
So,
It is consistent, and it's a matter of articulating it and how to be able to reasonably apply that. If you're the Ryan out there in the real world and someone says, I built this house and I fall under all these categories, and there's some research that would need to be performed. I don't disagree with the policy thrust here, which is, if you built it according to code, you shouldn't necessarily be punished until there are problems. I get that. It's kind of how you articulate it.
I had talked to Rick about this earlier, and he was gonna check with Ryan if you had a chance. Okay,
Ryan's been busy thawing out.
yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, busy guy. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but that was just a thought that occurred to me while I was rereading this. So
Let's get a second opinion. What's the harm in tabling it for 2 weeks?
Mhm.
So that we can have
Does that seem reasonable?
Mr. Waterman, you have anything you can share? Hey, call it in there.
Right, exactly. No, it's, if, yeah, if there's some other opinions that, when you want weighing in on this, why not be thorough instead of hasty?
Well,
I like that too.
Yeah.
I should wear a wig and be in the Independence Hall.
Everyone's, they're at the, yeah.
So then, and the motion down here is correct, because I was questioning it. Because it says they table.
was that, okay, we've got the,
I didn't read that and look. Right? So we go to run.
Rather than table, if, you're in the middle of public hearing. So I do the same thing you're gonna do.
Yep.
Coming up, which is take a motion to continue ordinance number 2, series 2023. to the
but
next
just
regular
close the
meeting.
public hearing first?
No, I
No.
continue the public.
Okay,
because
got it.
I'm just- Motion
Don't
continue
close
until the,
Got it.
let's find out when, it would be the April, April 11th.
March 28th would be the next meeting, yep.
Okay.
But against the rights.
I'll say continuous.
Is that agreeable?
There's an emerging consensus for somebody to make a motion to continue the hearing to the March. No, we're not closing.
No,
We're just gonna
we're continuing it. Yeah.
To the March 28th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue the public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 2, series 2003 to the March 28th meeting. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's. Okay, the next one has to do is ordinance number 4, series 2023. This is also public hearing and second reading. An ordinance amending the Georgetown Municipal Code to provide a definition for accessory dwelling unit.
Open public hearing.
So let's open that public hearing. That's 7:17 p.m.
When, as and if the other ordinance is approved, you're gonna need a definition of accessory dwelling unit. There's no harm in doing that definition now because that definition won't change. No matter what you do with the other ordinance, you might as well get it in place. And I'd urge that this ordinance just get approved unless there's public testimony that you should take.
Okay. Go ahead.
What is the definition?
What you don't have in front of you? I'm kidding. I can read it out of the packet. Shall I do that? Is that the question?
Please.
Means a dwelling unit located on the same lot with a single primary dwelling unit, but which is a distinctly separate unit from the primary dwelling unit, is subordinate in size and purpose to the primary dwelling unit and may or may not be attached to or integrated within the same structure as the primary dwelling unit, including a basement, addition, floor, or portion of a floor.
So this excludes sheds.
Yeah, because it's a dwelling unit and you don't get a certificate of occupancy for a shed.
Yes.
How does it relate to a duplex?
Same lot with a single primary dwelling unit, so it could be on the same lot with the duplex house, but it would be
No, but it doesn't relate to, a duplex is 2 dwelling units.
Right.
Same
Correct.
place, and it does not relate to a duplex at all.
well, it relates to a dwelling unit located on the same lot with a single primary dwelling
And
unit.
it's a subordinate,
It's a guest house.
Okay. Got it.
whereas a duplex.
And it's a definition a number of my clients use. I didn't just think it up. I borrowed, Cindy, just like DRC borrows.
Okay. Too much discussion in multiple places all at once.
Let's remember that what we're
Yeah,
doing
this
is
is the public.
defining what a accessory dwelling unit is. You're not regulating them per se. You're not saying, here's where they can be.
This ought to be
You're
simple.
creating a definition that you can then use in lots of places. You can say accessory dwelling are not permitted in association with duplexes, if you want to say that somewhere, but it wouldn't be here. It's a definition. It's not a here's.
Okay, fine, John, we won
Thanks.
this time.
I'm sensitive to the fact, we may not want ADUs to be on the same lot as a duplex, and you can do, that's a policy choice you just make, but this definition doesn't make that policy choice. It describes what the animal is. Later, you can say where the animals are permitted.
Good, so when we question our
Or
other guys, let's make sure that we just pop that question into them. After we pass this, I'll make a motion.
Hang on, just 1 second. We've got another question.
accessory dwelling unit have to have an occupancy permit of its own.
Sure, because it's a dwelling unit. Well, let's remember dwelling units. There's
I
got
guess
to
that's clear.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it-
Yeah, that's the same answer as the question that Rob asked. Can it be a shed? The answer is no, because it's.
So it has to have its own occupancy.
It's, yeah. Yeah, it's got to pass all those tests.
Yeah.
Fair question.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'll make a
Okay.
motion
Should we
to,
close public
oh, sorry.
hearing before we take the motion, or
Does-
does it matter? Okay, they typically used to, but,
You pick a
okay,
procedure and stick to it.
okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna close the public hearing. It is 7:21 PM, and go ahead, Rob.
I'll move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 4, series 2023.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 4, series 2023 on second reading. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on. Number 4 is ordinance number 5, series 2023. It was intended to be public hearing and second reading, so
Instead, a proper motion would be to continue the public hearing on ordinance number.
But I thought we were gonna do this another time.
He's doing.
We are. That's
we
what I'm trying to get you to.
Gonna table it.
Yeah, when we finish the motion, you can say,
you could
so
say-
moved, and you'll, be a hero.
Well, Rob,
Proper motion would be to move to continue the public hearing on ordinance 5, series 2023 to the March 28th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you.
second,
it's been moved and seconded to continue the public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 5, series 2023 to the March 28th meeting. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Does that get us out of the first reading?
we already went
We
out
already
of
did-
first
We
reading.
already, first reading already happened.
We went out of first reading last meeting.
And it got,
Continued it to this meeting.
And we just reading the first reading to this meeting.
I don't recall that.
Yes, that's what, but I
Did
think
it-
that you did, that's sort of why we're here.
This
It's just
was,
a gateway commercial one.
I think we're talking about the next ordinance.
Yeah. Can we do
Yeah.
just this one?
it's okay, confusion on ordinance numbers.
This
Okay.
one, I think they.
There's 2 number 5s.
Right,
I gotta have an agenda. That would help.
It's okay. It's okay. There's some extra copies up here if you wish. So, moving on,
Did
we
that
have.
motion get passed? It did, yeah.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It was unanimous. Next, we have ordinance number 5, series 2022. And this was a first reading that was continued, an ordinance amending the Georgetown Municipal Code concerning maximum lot and building sizes for the historic residential zone district and concerning code amendments relating thereto. Okay, let me go ahead and, no, this is first reading continued, so carry on. This is, can I ask you to just pull that front one. No, just the whole
The whole thing.
thing, yeah. Cause yeah, there you go. Zoning maps right behind it. Okay,
I don't believe this ordinance, we didn't obviously change it because it was just continued on first reading. So that you could have the conversation today, so it's back in front of you.
okay. Rick, do you want to tell us what's new here?
Yes, so, what I was tasked to do from our last continued meeting was to have Community Matters Institute, our planner, review this. We have professionals on our boards who spent months creating this. And then we had Community Matters now look at two parts of this. One is the whole process between DRC and Planning Commission, and then now to actually review and make a recommendation about the FAR. And so a memo was created and it's in your packet. And so basically they go through everything in thorough detail, kind of checking what the numbers and how the DRC came up with their determination and makes a recommendation to approve that. That's a summary.
Okay.
So, and the 0.4 was the one that was in question. And the planner has determined that that is a legitimate number. Is it basically his determination was 96% of all of that was done falls within a 0.4. Therefore, it's a good number to keep.
Okay. All right.
And to see his memo, just.
Is there
I
a
think it's
copy
in
of
the
your
packet,
memo?
isn't it?
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
It says, can you manage this?
Right. So, we did take comments in our meeting last time, even though it was still first reading as we are today. I think since it's still being discussed, and I think it would be appropriate if there were new public comments to be made, it would be appropriate to take them. So, do you have anything? Yes, Anne.
Ann Wilkins, I'm with the Planning Commission. I'm addressing a question John had last time, and I don't know if he's still interested, but he wanted to know where all this started. And I'm just gonna let you know where it started if you're interested.
That'd be great.
Applicant came to the Planning Commission for a lot line elimination. Basically inferred that we don't have anything to say about it because DRC's already approved it. So we started going through the codes and stuff to try and figure out, this was the number I remember is 3,200 square foot house. In that location in the historic district, we did not feel that was adequate or proper. And so we started looking for a way to say, this is treated as property for that piece of land. And that's how we got talking about all this, if that helps you at all.
So you're tasked just doing lot lines.
Yes, that's what the original thing was to eliminate a lot line.
So in reality, that was all that should have happened.
And that's what ended up happening,
The
yes.
lot line, hold on, the lot line got eliminated, then it goes back to the DRC for approval.
DRC had already approved it, and that's where we were going in circles.
What's the circle stuff?
Can I
Yeah.
for a minute, they came into the DRC. The DRC is under current procedure, I think it's still a procedure. Anytime something comes before a planning commission, the DRC is supposed to send a recommendation to the planning commission on whether it impacts the concerns of the DRC. When somebody comes and they're looking for a new house, they will simultaneously add. If they are in front of the DRC, when the DRC is doing that recommendation, they will simultaneously ask the DRC to consider their house. And the thing that this says we may not do in the future, and that's one of the important parts of this whole ordinance, is the DRC, in order to save the applicant time, is looking at their house when all we're really supposed to be doing is making a recommendation to planning. And so if we look at their house and say, you know, yeah, this looks, you know, this passes all of our guidelines, then what happens is they still haven't gotten their lot line thing, and they go to planning, and they announce to planning that they have to grant the lot line because the DRC has already approved the house, and the approval may not be formal. So what the DRC has learned procedurally, and you know, this is part of what Rick helped set up for us, is look, you may have to make a recommendation, but these folks still need lot lines to do, they still need water and sewer or whatever else they need to do. So you may not consider the project. And that's a process thing on us. But what that did, the planning commission was then informed they could not deny the lot line removal because they had no maximum lot size. So in this ordinance, we tried to fix that one too. We fixed the process, we fixed the facts that they now have a maximum lot line, but it started the conversation between the commissions about people eradicating lot lines so they can build bigger and bigger houses, and they're in charge of area bulk regulations. What tools are out there for handling that question, which is where the discussion started on the FAR. The FAR is only one part of your ordinance here. And as a matter of fact, the ordinance is aimed at curing a couple of those other procedural things, establish the maximum lot limit. You know, it has some really important clarifying procedure things in it. So, you know, we're here to support the fact that we would like the tool of the FAR included. But even if it weren't, this ordinance is important for other.
I do see the 10,000 square feet. That makes total sense to me. You know, that your buildable area would be at 10,000. I mean, maybe you owned acres, but you could only identify 10,000 square feet as your buildable site. That makes sense to me. I'm not sold on the farm yet, but okay, go ahead.
Well,
You want to run that?
No, you're fine. So go ahead, Dwayne.
yeah, I was gonna add too, because Ann kind of clarified that, but here's the other part of the issue too. So, and I had this discussion with Tom today. So think about this, you know, if you're thinking you want to eliminate some lot lines, and you know you got to go to DRC, so then you pay an architect a lot of money. So that's also too, imagine the applicants come to us going, we've already spent thousands of dollars on these plans, DRC loves it. You know, which maybe they just like it, but the DRC loves it, here, you guys eliminate it now. You know, it's, the process is kind of backwards. People should be put in a position to spend money before they realize what they can do. We shouldn't be put in a position to have to pass it based on the fact that they spent money already on doing that. If that also helps too, just kind of add to what Ann
I think if you have the 10,000 square foot, that would get rid of a lot of the confusion, you know, with building a large place maybe.
Well, the FAR coming into that helps dictate the size that they can do, because if you just go up 10,000 square foot and you go within setbacks, then you're back to a giant house also. So that's where we did a lot of research to help come up with an FAR, which it's amazing because I've had a lot of people that I know that are kind of against it. Me as a builder, that's my trade. I love the idea of going, okay, if I don't live here, if I buy this spot based off the size, I know before I buy it, what square footage of house that I can build that in a sense too will fit DRC. So it helps get you past that. People are disagreeing with me and I still haven't figured out what I'm missing to why. It simplifies it. Unless you're trying to get around the idea of how big you want to build, which
it's only gonna go to DRC and they're gonna say massive scale doesn't fit anyway. So then it goes back and you go, well, people are spending more money without realizing what they can do.
I think the thing that bothers me, I don't have a problem with the 0.4 and 10,000. That's a really large house.
That's a very large house.
Yeah, so that'd be
That's
4,000
square
square foot house, possibly with a basement. You know, the problem I'm having is, on the smaller lots, having that FAR also apply. It seems like people should be able to build
Because it's
a bigger house necessarily on that smaller lot. You know, if it fits massive scale with the DRC's current regulations.
Well, that's what's interesting too, if the DRC really follows the guidelines, what the guidelines say, and they have said for the last 15 years. Is that, because we're supposed to take a 300-foot radius, which is an easy thing to do, and we're supposed to look at the historic structure in that radius. And take the average of their height and person, the new house cannot be more than 5 feet over that average height. If the DRC, one of the reasons the DRC, well, two reasons the DRC didn't apply that to begin with is it's hard to apply, it's hard to figure out all the time. We did do it a couple of times and turned down a couple of very large houses, one on Spring Street and one where Washington Mills site is now. But the other reason you don't is that the area and bulk regulations say, well, I can go, everybody likes to try to build to the maximum. I can go on 40% of my lot, I can go up to 25 feet. So I'm going to do that. It does not, that doesn't really create small house on small lots. It allows some really large houses on small lots.
So 0.4 house on the 5,000 square foot lot would be.
But that's that's not. That's not. It's not.
How does that compare to what we have existing?
Well, that's what his numbers are saying, well, we did the whole sheet, and
Yeah,
I don't have that.
it just seems like there's a number of houses that are.
Well, 3/4 of the, there is an exact number of one of these things that says what percentage of houses are underneath that, and it's over 75%. Now, how is living space out in these houses, John, is almost deceptive.
Right.
It doesn't come out good. So look at the large houses going down Rose Street, and the numbers we pick up on Rose houses get nowhere near their 0.4 for their.
If you applied a 15-foot setback, you know, which is what building code sort of.
Yeah.
How big a house would you get on a 5,000 square foot lot with the front and back setback?
Okay, you could get your 40%. You could get a footprint of 2,000 square feet, and then you could get a second story of 2,000 square feet. So technically, under our current regulations, you could get 4,000 square foot house on a 5,000 square foot lot. Now, nobody does that. I mean, we aren't to that extent, but that's where the area and bulk regulations sit at this point.
How would that fit in with your bulk and mass existing regulations of the 300 square foot area, you know, the 300 foot radius around there? How?
If we did the problem with that is that the builder has already looked at his area and bulks. If I did that, if you did the 300 around Washington Millside, not a single one of those houses would look the way they look now. They all because the 300 radius our guidelines tell us to use is only for the historic houses that exist in that radius. And that's why this applies only to the historic district. I mean, this doesn't apply to Middlesex Meadows.
In that instance, I can think of what, 3 or 4 houses that you would be averaging.
And they're all 1 story or 1.5 stories.
So what you're arguing is that the 0.4 would actually allow a larger house than that.
No, I'm arguing that 40%, the 0.4 would let, the 0.4 would help us. Yeah, the 0.4 actually would allow a larger house than that, yes, but the 0.4 would help us address the problem, and it's exactly what Dwayne's saying. Before the person sat down to draw out their house, they look at the area of bulk regulations. We ask them to read the guidelines, but in spite of what some people said, guidelines are guidelines. This board at one point approved the guidelines by resolutions. They didn't pass an ordinance that said this is the law. And so if I'm gonna build a house, yeah, I'm a builder, I'm gonna look what my area and bulk regulations are. If we don't give some indication to them in our area and bulk regulation that mass and scale is going to matter. I mean, and you've got, that's why the FAR, it's a tool for the builder.
It's more objective and easier to absorb from a builder, for a property owner, for a developer. It's numeric and it gives them a horseback sense of, okay, here's what I can do. Understanding that the design guidelines are harder to absorb if you're not part of the literati that's in the room here, and just don't give you the go, no go when I'm about to plunk the money down sense. And that's not bad. Now, where you draw the numbers, which is in this ordinance, is, a policy call for the board, and you do your best. But I think that's a good way of distinguishing between what you're doing here and what DRC does ultimately.
So we're still picking and choosing which regulations you're applying and not, like you said, you didn't even take into consideration, and I don't mean you, not pointing the finger, but it wasn't taken into consideration. The 300 rate, surrounding area and the roof height of what was already there, or I can drive down the new, Washington Mill and see the garages that are facing the street that when I look at the DRC guidelines, that's a no in that particular district. But then yet I see 5 out of the 6 houses that have it. And I like how you stated it, and I'm not going to be able to restate it as eloquently, that if we're looking at a larger lot, and I'm all over the place on this, I realize that, but the building, we have to pick that pocket of 10,000 square foot. What if it's an 11,000 square foot lot, or what if it's several acres? But we're determining that here's your 10,000, buildable space, and this is the max size you can put in there, even if you have,
Acres.
exactly.
Because we do have
So we have a limited zone we're looking at. It is platted.
It was just.
And so we know
not
what we're looking at.
No, I understand that.
Don't have that's a hypothetical.
So I won't say acres, but we could potentially, someone, certainly not me, could potentially combine lots, eliminate the lot lines, have more than 10,000 square feet, just because of those lots. And yet let's go back and define that maximum building size based on the space of 10,000 square foot.
But we're also defining the maximum lot size. We're putting all of the figures in area and bulk go together to form what is possible on a lot. Your lot coverage does, your setbacks do, your lot size does, and and floor area ratio would be the other tool. And yes, the design review guidelines are guidelines. We also now want people to get their cars off the streets. We want to have garages. Historic houses didn't have garages. So what our garage guidelines say is that we really don't want them, and we try hard to not get them at the front face of the house, so you're not leading off with your garage. And, I mean, I can go to garage guidelines and read them down for you, because we try to be very conscious of how you place that, because that is a very non-historic look to a house, but these aren't historic houses. So what you're trying to do is keep them compatible. And the biggest aspect of compatibility is mass and scale. That's the biggest single aspect about roof form and the rest.
But our objections that we were hearing, that I was hearing, seemed to be more on the point, on the FAR use or definition compared to the, I think all confused myself, the site coverage.
Bulk regulation.
Yeah,
The site
that seemed to be the pushback or the big question amongst everyone, and the architect term, whatever his last name is. Thank you. Brought up some concerns in his letter that I don't think our community matters has addressed, with how that's typically interpreted and used in urban areas and all of its different definitions. It didn't seem where it's quite fitting for our community.
I actually lean more towards what's being proposed because it is limited to the historic residential district, which it's, there's nothing that says any other zoning district, residential zoning district, this doesn't apply to. So you're not limited to that 0.4 FAR. And I think the goal, as I see it, is to allow what DRC has in their guidelines carry over into the zoning regulations that the Planning Commission regulates, so that you don't have a discrepancy between the two. One allows more, the other restricts, and but just in this one historic residential zoning district, you've got something that makes the two more similar, so that you don't have a property owner or a builder going into it not understanding that even if they were to design to just your general zoning regulations without this FAR limitation and the property lot size, the maximum lot size, that you'd be able to design something that then goes to DRC and couldn't be approved. And I for one think, as far as preserving the character of this zoning district, which is a huge part of the landmark historic district, I agree with what they've come up with. So, and the way it's written, it also allows, because it's only measuring the livable floor space, the habitable, you've got a lot of flexibility when you combine it with maximum lot coverage. You can design the garage, the porches, there's more flexibility there than there is limitation from my point of view. I think, a designer can really, they can come up with something that's really attractive, fits in, and meets everybody's guidelines. I don't see it as being as limiting as some people are looking at it, but that's That's just my view.
How do you see it as a remodel or an add-on? And I'm asking you, you're my
Well,
in-house contractor. Well, because that's.
sure, it is.
So how is that going to impact the people that already live here? And have that historic property on that historic lot in the historic district, want to add on with this new. If we pass the 0.4 FAR compared to the previous coverage. You know, maybe it doesn't have the biggest impact on a new bill, but.
No, it would have an impact on the existing that was seen. Yeah.
Hey, Lynette, can I, because I had, there were a few people in the story that was there when they addressed me, they're like, this, how does this affect you?
Yeah.
And that's why I was kind of hoping it'd be brought up, and it was more my question for Cindy. You know, because for me, you get caught in a mix, right? It's like, well, you don't want to stop people from getting to do stuff. But then what it always kind of goes back to, it's like, well, you bought a historic house. So if you, and a couple of these people have like true historic houses, they've got with the nameplate on it. So my question to you, Cindy, is even if we don't do this, they're already limited to adding on to their house anyway, correct? Or not? How does that work?
If they're designated, I thought that they were. I thought that they were under some sort of a national landmark designation that, put restrictions.
Cannot add on to your house. Yeah, but the add-ons, TRC's gotten much better about additions over the years. I'm pleased to say we've only lost 3 that I know of. I mean, when I say lost, they've been taken off the historical records because they have been so altered that they no longer retain any historical integrity. And yes, I'm not going to point out where those 3 were. You would be able to find them instantly by even mentioning of the colors.
But to the point.
But the point, thank you, is that I think that we are less concerned, I don't know, these folks can speak to it, on how we handle additions than we are to the new construct. Because it's the new constructions that are going to fill in our spaces. Our additions, we can work with people a little bit better on. There are some, and that was Amanda Cooper's point, was they would never be permitted to add on to their house. And what she tells me is, no, they would only be permitted to add on 168 square feet of living space to their house. Well, that's not a tiny addition, actually. If what you're looking for is an extra bedroom. So I don't know. For most of our historic houses, they would still be permitted in addition. But I think, from my vantage point, if the FAR only applied to new construction, that would be fine, because that's where it's really needed.
So that's the most important for sure.
And because if we start, if Tom Peterson walks in with his typical size house, and we say we've done this 300-foot radius, and I'm sorry, but you have spent the time designing it, and it's 25 feet to the middle of its gables from the bottom floorboard, not from the ground, because it even sits on a foundation, which historic houses don't. He's gonna get really upset. He told that, sorry, you gotta go back and redesign it at 17 feet.
So you would propose that this is only for new construction?
If that is the way that the board would be comfortable with, I
would way be more comfortable with that, and then allowing the DRC to have control of the additions.
The addition.
So it should be actually a board discussion on that point, now that you've heard from the public, something the board's got to make some choice.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Mom. I guess having seen over my 27 plus years in the building department that some additions, I mean, we joked around and said, this isn't really an addition, this is a multiplication because of the amount of new space that was added it made the house 3 times, 4 times as big as the original.
Sure.
I'm a little leery of not including existing, but I leave that to experts, but I just toss that out because I've seen it happen. So
If I could just make kind of summarize this.
let me get more comments from the board
Okay.
at this time. So
But I thought it was only, I like the fact that it's only on new construction. You know, seems like that's the ground zero, but you know, the one thing about her being before the horse, that's another thing that I think ought to be.
what do you mean by that?
Well, it seems like, you know, DRC is forced to either approve or disapprove of something, and then they approve it, they go to planning.
The process.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's gotta be reversed,
Yeah.
that's gotta be, you know, that's a big problem.
Sure, sure. And, you know, does that not come into play in the case of existing and somebody wants to add on? I think it should, it would, but, you know, that's just me.
Well, I built many years ago under mechanisms where you were only allowed to go up a certain percentage of the existing structure in any one addition. And that helps, I think. No, I mean percentage.
Yeah.
You know, so if you had a 500 square foot house, you could add maybe 150 square feet of an addition, something like that. I find maybe something along that lines, whatever the numbers, it turned out to be more palatable for the community at large. That seems pretty concerned with the rigid bar, including me. But I do see the value of having the bar to slow down that jump to large buildings in one step. So that it seems like it would put more control back into the DRC. Their ability to control those future constructions. Am I wrong?
Well, we're trying to put the control. Of the, you know, kind of getting the envelope for the building in the lot. Into the planning commission, because that's the first thing that a builder will look at is, okay, what can I do here? The driver from this, I mean, if this was not a historic town and we were not in the historic residential district, then things could be quite different. But the DRC is charged with maintaining the character, particularly of this district. I mean, the whole town, but particularly this district. And what we've been faced with more recently, and it keeps getting worse and worse, is people come in and they want to maximize what they can build on a lot in G. If we could get by and we'll subdivide these 3 lots and we'll put like 3,700 square foot lots, and we still want to put a 3,000 square foot house on it, it's too big, it doesn't fit. Right. But if you look at the zoning code, which the planning commission is charged with, and it fits all their criteria, so they can't come in and say, no, it doesn't fit. We're trying to get an alignment between what the DRC is charged with doing and what our guidelines, and we treat them as guidelines because we know we have to work with people, and if you can't put a garage in the back of your house or the side of your house, which a lot of sites just don't lend themselves to, then, you know, it goes in the front. But we work with people on that, so we consider our guidelines as guidelines. Whereas the code, that's the law. And one of the other things we're trying to change is we've been caught lately in the last 2 or 3 years with the cart before the horse, where there are legal code issues that come up that haven't been resolved in, you know, the builders spent a ton of money doing plans, and then comes in and, you know, this looks still wrong. We think we got a problem here with utilities, you got a problem with, you know, setbacks, this kind of stuff. They need to get resolved before they come to DRC. So we just want to kind of change the process. That's one of the goals of this ordinance. In the historic district, people could buy up 4 or 5 lots and have a 20,000 square foot lot. It's too big. If you're going to build and go with the 0.4 lot coverage and the setbacks, you could build a, you know,
we build a huge government building there. So we're trying to get the lot size down to fit the lot sizes in the area. That's where the 10,000 came from, and we went back and forth with that. The FAR, what drove that was, what happens is, okay, we got a small lot, 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. We can only have a certain size footprint, but yeah, we're gonna put 4 stories in. We've had that come up. And we could kick it down because of ridge line heights and that kind of stuff. But it's still, the FAR gets us into the right size building envelope for the lots in this district. And the key is the district is driving so that we don't have areas that, or a house in an area that just really is out of whack.
Well,
Let me bring it back to the board. Thank you for that. Yes. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, you go
We
ahead.
were talking.
I thought our minimum lot size was 5,000 in the historic district.
It's so you can have, I guess, grandpa limit lot, a non-conforming lot. And I think we did this, it's been a few years now, so I'm not perfect on it, but it basically puts you at, as long as your lot was 3,750 square foot or bigger, you still can build on it. So you technically can't divide it up to be smaller than 5,000 square foot, but there's lots that are smaller.
Historic. There are historic lots that were that size.
They were platted.
That were platted that size. Which you can't agree on that small.
and they still are allowed,
There's a lot of
for the board, you've got this ordinance on first reading. I think it's been moved once. So as usual, you have 3 choices. It's moved twice.
Yeah.
You've got 3 doors,
Yep.
One is just remembering it's first reading, approve what's in front of you or move to approve it and send it to second reading hearing. This dialogue will continue quite likely. Door number 2 is you try to amend it on first reading and send it to second reading, which you can do.
I think this is second reading because.
No.
It is not.
No.
We've continued on first.
Bunch of times.
Sorry.
Or you can
Hard to
continue,
talk these days.
you can continue first reading yet again. But those are the 3 doors. I mean, there's another door, which is we just keep talking until 9 o'clock, which we could do. I've brought my diet Pepsi, so I'm ready for that.
Go ahead, Jess.
I don't think, I'm fine with the 10,000 square foot lot size. In here, that's no problem. That would somewhat fit the zone, I guess. I don't have a problem with a 0.4 on a 10,000 foot lot. I might have a problem on trying to do a 0.4 if it's a permanent setup for a 5,000 square foot lot, you're not allowing anybody to add a bedroom, somehow it comes in. That, like one of our constituents said that they were worried about it in a case that was talked about. I guess that concerns me. And I'd like some more dialogue on that. I think before I'm ready to approve this.
Well, are you okay with having that dialogue during second
Second reading's fine.
Okay.
Sounds like you're ready to make the motion.
Can I ask one more question? So it's an easy one. It's got nothing to do with FAR, slope, coverage, maximum size. If I'm reading the correct ordinance here, what happened to the previous number that indicated minimum number of off-street parking? That kind of got eliminated from this. Wasn't on here. The old one referred to it.
I don't recall. I don't know.
All of a sudden that got eliminated.
I
And I
don't
don't,
have
I
an
don't.
answer.
I don't remember that being part of it.
When I looked up in our current code. What's this? I didn't. Okay. Hot off the press today from our town website.
Okay.
Under D, 17.16.041 D. And then now we're listing out 1 through 10. In the old one, the old number 9, there was an indication of minimum number of off-street parking required, see section 17, blah, 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 blah. But then that one just didn't get carried over. See, he's got.
Or it's not being listed because it's not being changed?
Yeah.
Well, no, the other ones that weren't being changed were just renumbered. I don't think we wanna delete it unless we
Okay.
intentionally deleted it.
I'm following that. My promise is this, that if you do move it forward to second reading, I'll make sure that we don't inadvertently either delete parking language that's there or change it if it shouldn't have been changed. Quite likely, we'll just reinsert it as representing existing code that isn't being amended. But sitting here right now, I can't tell you with certainty which of those it is, but I can tell you all, make certain. That's what I can do about it. I mean, that's all I can do, other than speculate, which I don't do.
Okay.
Let's go on.
You still want it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, somebody needs to make,
somebody-
we'll see if Mary wins or John wins, but I have the nerve to make much. Come on, Mary.
Let's see, John said he's.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move this along with the first reading until next meeting.
To continue the first reading?
Yeah, to continue the first reading.
Okay.
That's what Mary's comfortable with.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to continue ordinance number 5, series 2022 on first reading. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thanks very much. And thank you all.
Is that Staples button?
Okay.
This one should go down some kind of award for the longest first reading.
Okay. Okay,
You need to get my.
so,
You need to get my.
okay,
I'll take.
okay, we're going on. Thank you. Number 7 on our agenda
Stay till 10, Cindy.
is
Come on, Bob.
number 7 on the agenda is the backhoe loader. There's a quote from Wagner CAT.
I approve it.
We're gonna talk about it.
Go ahead.
I have spoke to most of you on the phone. This was a limited time offer. And it was a formality that we went ahead and signed after talking to you. And we were able to get the deal and it's been delivered. So
Oh, I definitely accept it.
See Cat from Wagner for $139.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the quote for a pre-owned 420 XE cat backhoe. In the,
10 times.
yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Did all have to leave.
Okay, next we have the marketing and events coordinator, change of job description and salary.
I will.
Go ahead, yes, please.
So I just want to make sure one stipulation from this back when you were talking, I didn't catch it. It's a contract versus quote. So
Oh, well,
just,
okay,
I wrote down quote, but it's actually a contract. So you approved the contract.
oh, it was a purchase order,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
sales
because we
agreement.
kind of called and then we did it backwards, but anyways,
It
Okay.
works.
okay.
Yeah, you want a minimum.
It is. So this, I hope that you had a chance to look at the job description. Mary, Amanda, and I have spent a lot of time going through this. And this is what it is. We've increased the salary just a little bit. And we made it a 3-month probation period where they would be eligible for a salary increase based on satisfactory results and performance and things like that. So we present it to you. If you have any thoughts or comments or suggested changes. But we are ready to put a job, like an ad out for this, to post it. But, you know, as a formality, we want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with this before we move forward.
Okay, so one question that leapt into mind when we bumped the date of the transition between having it be a contract position and now becoming staff is, can the budget handle that additional time frame?
And I'll let Mary speak on that.
Well, I mean, from what I looked at, the starting salary, it's less than $500 difference than what we were paying previously. Yes. So the only thing that we are absorbing is the benefit package, really. And that, say they started in April, that wouldn't begin till May 1st, so you're really only absorbing 1 month.
Well,
Maybe two.
So we've gone 2 months without paying out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think,
Okay.
it's gonna pretty much be a wash. We might have to eat a little bit of it, you know, and find some place that it's not gonna crash you.
I would hope that business promotions could come to a compromise with their budget. With this.
Okay, let's do
Right,
it down.
so that we,
Yeah,
increase the salary position and, you know, so.
It should be,
Business promotions, we need to get this person going.
So the total cost with benefits would be what, about 68,000?
you know, without having my cheat sheet here,
What is it?
around 60 or just under 60, the starting would be the benefits probably.
Awesome. I'm ready.
Okay.
You're hired.
Anybody else, more discussion?
I actually wondered, when reading the job description, where it says process lake and park reservations, are you talking the permits as well?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, that'll take some load off.
And this should help a lot with the town with like the
Mhm.
problem we have with the tent with the fire authority, right? This person can track that problem and take care of it before it happens.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this person, it makes it clear that this person is a point person for all of this. Not just town council, but any event that comes, there's still a point person for marketing
And you don't have to do it.
Well, supervision, but
Yeah, I will show up to
So that's Jeep races and all.
Yeah, but anything that may not, you know, come into an event that the town even has their fingers on, otherwise, other than that it's occurring here, we have that point person is this person.
Yeah.
It's clarified better.
so is there also in here, I don't remember seeing it, but well, yeah, I guess I do, because there was coordination with the county.
Yeah.
And so any events that flows, you know, from county through town and goes on would also kick in this person. So that's great because, yeah.
This is exactly what was missing for all those years I was on the business promotion. It was just everything was lost along the way. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Make the motion.
So we can pass it.
It's right there. I want to get the job description for the marketing events coordinator as a full-time employee position for $45,000 per year, plus benefits, and after 3 months, the probationary period will be eligible for a salary change of $50,000, depending on satisfactory evaluation.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the updated job description for the marketing and events coordinator as stated. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, excellent.
Excellent.
Okay, now we move on to the two letters of support. Let's we've got letter of support for the Clear Creek Animal Shelter first. Did we have that?
Yeah, it was added.
Okay. Got
So
it.
it was a template that the county sent to us.
I got it.
I added the town of Georgetown, added our town logo and my signature block at the end.
Okay.
So it's
So the monetary amount that we're promising also is $1,500 is what was asked. And that's to help them make up their match for the grant. So make sure the money gets mentioned.
Does it say when they're going to do?
The grant application, they needed this letter of support by next Monday because the grant application needs to be in by the end of the month. And we weren't going to make that deadline by putting it on next meeting. So motion to approve the letter of support as you have in your packet.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Go, Rob.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I thought, I'm sorry, did you guys want to include the money amount? You just said.
I'd like to amend my motion to include the 1,500.
1,500 would get the extra.
Well, yes.
I'll second it.
Yes.
Good man.
Yes. Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you,
Keep it
John. Keep us on track. And next we have been also requested by CML to weigh in on some legislation that's going through the state legislature. I'm gonna let Rick.
This is something Jerry and I have been talking about. We were gonna postpone it. However, CML contacted me again today and said, this is due soon, within the next few days, by the end of this week. And they really want to hear from Georgetown. House Bill 23-166 is a bill that they're putting in place, or they'd like to put in place, that would establish a new fire mitigation code board. And so they feel strongly that this is adding way more regulation than what current municipalities already are doing with their fire authorities and everything else. And so it's like putting a new mandate, and it's saying one thing, but then not doing anything to give us the funds to do this new thing. And it's forcing us to do something which we already have a plan in play. And so
Did Kelly weigh in on this?
no.
No, but I think it's not a good idea to put this in. I would rather see a state fire marshal. Someone who would unify and come up with something that helps the whole state figure out this problem.
Well, and something that also, I mean, they pushed all of the communities, counties and towns to come up with those community wildfire.
Did that, didn't we?
Yep, we sure did. CWPIPs were generated and we're being encouraged to update them. I think their energies would be better spent in incentivizing all of the updating and implementation of all of those plans that so much hard work went into developing a new plan that may or may not work. And here we are. I mean, we're hemmed in by US Forest Service. The state regulation, I doubt very highly, is going to have anything to do or any power over US Forest Service. It just doesn't happen. So you know, our little town is forced into regulating when we're surrounded by Forest Service that isn't covered by this. It doesn't sit well with me.
So new plan, go pound sand.
Whoa.
Move. Another one. Another one.
So what I think, if you're all right with this, basically it's a letter of opposition for that Senate bill. Yeah.
So we're in favor of CML's position,
Yeah.
which is an opposition to the House bill.
Correct.
Okay.
And knowing what I know about the league, having worked there, two things, they're concerned about preemption, really, which is part of this. You must adopt regulations no less stringent than this new set that the state comes up with, or this body comes up with. And secondly, in the dynamics that the state has, they want to be able to tell the legislators they're lobbying that, you know, communities oppose this for lots of good reasons. Georgetown opposes it for the preemption type reasons. And in addition, I think your point is well made about many towns, especially in Western Colorado, are surrounded by federal land where there's fire danger, but these regulations would not apply. And that's something I think that isn't always recognized at the state house. You know, they kind of think Denver centric a lot, even though they're from all over the state, and they get in that building. They don't really think about the fact patterns out here. So those can be articulated in the letter.
So. All right.
So what do you need to do?
I just need direction.
Maybe a motion to authorize the staff to draft and Lynette to sign a letter supporting the league's position of opposition to Senate Bill number
23-166.
So.
There's 3 seconds and. All in favor, say aye. That's how I do it.
He's only supposed to get, I think that fire person, I forget his.
Jeremy.
Yeah, right. He thought he could come and chat with us in February about their plans. Maybe we need to.
Yeah, he hasn't set up those regular meetings again, so I don't know when he's.
Yeah.
But he's
Oh,
maybe.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right, on to, did we cover all of the?
Rather than some.
Well, I'll talk about that.
Yep, so under the administrator's report.
Okay.
We might need more chocolate.
Yeah, I
It's
went through Paul's mine. I got 2 more. Lots of shit here. Oh, nice, thank you.
They're asking for more over there.
I'm good.
All right, so I'll have to now re-update my ordinance changes since we now have next month, next meeting's gonna be brutal, just letting you know.
It is going to be.
It's gonna be brutal. Okay, so you've already read my admin report, so I'm just gonna give you updates on since this. I had spoke with Jerry, I can't remember his last name.
Heavy on it.
Fabiani.
Oh.
See it right here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the chicken. So I've spoken to him multiple times. I'm very much aware, and we're gonna come up with a strategy to see what we can do. However, we do have priorities with our road and bridge, and we're not gonna trump things just because this. However, we're gonna try our best to address some of these in significant ways. I did receive another letter asking because their pipes froze. However, the main did not freeze. It was just a lack of their responsibility adjusting their drippage. I denied it, but he is planning to come next month or next meeting to ask for an abatement for his water bill, which was $1,000.
Is that on Skyline also?
No, it was on 7th Street.
Okay.
Yeah, just giving you a heads up.
Can't wait.
The second is, we're gonna have 2 job ads, one for the wastewater, and it will be like summer help. And then the second one will be for the marketing events coordinator position. I am not ready to move forward on my assistant position. I do have the job description, all that stuff ready. I actually have somebody that I'm recruiting right now to apply for this position. We will still open it up for anyone, but I'm kind of waiting to see this project of getting the police relocated before I bring somebody in, and then now they have no place to be. So, but that's in process.
You said part-time for wastewater or part-time for?
It'll be summer help for water and wastewater.
Oh.
So this is another position that they've been wanting to do, and it'll be the position. Let me give you a little update. It will be specifically for hydrant flushing and sewer manhole maintenance.
Actually, the getting the, using the Spartan.
It helps with our ISO.
No, I get that, but so should, since we're posting that as a summer or a seasonal thing, should we post it for our parks? Part-timer too, or?
Probably, yeah.
There, maybe somebody's got more of them.
Maybe they're
Passionate about sewers than they do about grass.
Yeah.
I am. I'm on the sewer board.
Mary, I think that the part-time park person that we had last year, they want to return this year, so I think.
You know,
And he got, he worked well with that, and so that's something we.
Yeah, he comes back and we'll
Okay.
return.
Just, like,
Sure.
And then the wastewater part-time, they went from 4 people to, they've been working with 3, and then, okay, we can do it with 3, which is the part-time in the summer.
Okay,
That's where that came from.
Yeah.
okay,
cost savings.
thanks.
Next is the town and the county have been working together. Has come to an agreement. They reached out to the Department of Revenue and let them know that they intend to now, well, they want the DR Department of Revenue to stop collecting the county's tax. So that's been done. Then our task was set for Jerry and their attorney to work together to come up with a letter that we would send to the vendor. So that's what this letter is. This is the latest draft of this, ready to be sent out, just making sure you're aware of it. And this will go to all the vendors. So it's a good letter that
It's a good letter.
working together. And it does clarify exactly how this is going to be. Worked out. Yeah.
So DOR has been notified.
They have.
Officially,
This-
okay,
And they're set to stop collecting on by July 1st.
Now, they have acknowledged, so that's
okay.
a good outcome.
So anyways, it's been a great process. We've come to great terms, and now I think our vendors are going to be in a good position that we're in agreement on this. This is just a quick update. One of the things that is part of the Argentine North project, which will have 5-foot concrete sidewalks on the east side, and on the west side, interstate side, will have a 10-foot concrete bike path. One of the issues that we have is towards the microtel, there are 2 telephone poles that are like a foot from the street, Argentine Street.
And there's a big hole there
And
too.
there's a big hole that Scooter is going to be trying to address.
Gotcha.
That's calls from the berm, not letting the water drain, because that used to be a ditch-like area and now it's full of the berm, so there's no way to drain that. But yeah, we're aware of it. Thank you. I love that.
Yes, it can't sort of right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really bad, it's probably dangerous deep right now.
No, Don was looking at it one day. He was trying to figure out, where to safely park. We'll look at it.
But I've contacted Excel to find out how can we get these 2 poles relocated.
Chainsaw.
And it is not easy. And so I'm in the process, but there again, supposedly there was a way for me to go online and fill out the section to request this. I have not found it yet. I've spent hours trying. I've called, I've gotten documents showing, I don't know where to go, and they don't know where for me to go. But they're aware of it. And I've sent maps to them. I've sent everything that I need, but that's an update. Another thing that you will see next meeting is the process chart that we've been working on. So I wish I could have had it tonight, but it's just not ready, but I'm just giving you a sneak peek of what it looks like. Between the DRC and
Land use.
We really need that.
Yeah. So we needed, yeah, you're right.
Thank you.
It's kind of similar to what we had in Brush, because I thought it was a good one we had. They've taken what we have and used that, and so Jerry's looked at it but you'll see it next
Isn't that
meeting.
Jerry's stamp of approval?
We don't.
I wrote the Brush one. I'm everywhere now. Everywhere.
The next one is an update is Bighorn Crossing. They have gone through the DRC with their preliminary approvals. And now we're in the review process. Jerry, Community Matters, and myself have been taking time to go through what's the next step to be able to give you an update. And
Let planning commission know.
yeah, well, we're just still in our review stage right now of what it is. And
That'd be one thing.
we're looking at the development agreement, the subdivision improvement agreement, and the plat, and seeing if it is all this stuff lining up. And so just we're moving on that. Anything else, Jerry?
No, it's coming together though.
Okay, it is coming together. So that's just an update. I have the letter that
Micro apartments. and all that
Yes.
stuff,
Yes.
Mhm.
This is the letter that Jerry has drafted, that we're in review of what we're gonna send Kurt about, okay, in order to move forward, you have to address these things. So, and it's not big things, but still needs to be addressed. Yes, Mary?
Just don't forget the huge thing that they are about maxed out under EQR
Yep.
that they.
It's in there.
It's in the letter.
Okay.
Ryan raised that on your behalf.
Does it include moving
I
their
might.
temporary farms? Savings to Argentina?
How can they be maxed out?
They will have to do that. And he's aware.
They were trying, but I mean, we're already.
71.
Giving
Is
us
it-
these
Okay,
different-
whoa, there's too much.
Okay, I need.
Crisscross.
And I believe between Ryan's and my calculations, they've already used 140. I think they only had like 30 EQR left.
Yep, and that's, they have that's their little bank they get to spend. And the letter informs them, this is where you're at in the bank. And that means that what's left may not be enough for every
Project.
conceivable use of the remaining undeveloped land. You guys are grown-ups. And it's, just be aware that we're not going to be approving development that doesn't have water in the bank, so beware. And telling Kurt Seal Company's a grown up.
Can I understand that there's a little bit more, they've used it for the existing building?
Yeah, all the existing, yeah, and when you take the micro hotel into account, then their banks
Really?
Yeah, but we're alerting them to that. And they will be providing water. Part of that bank gets used for that tiny little commercial development across Argentina.
Yeah.
Which I think we want to see happen. That what scripts in it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So some's being used there, and that's all good, but it means there's less left, and that's their problem. And we're making sure they know that.
Yeah.
So Mary just brought up, does this letter include moving the berm 5 feet because it's in our right of way? Does that need to be put in there? Because he has to move it regardless. But I just wanted.
If you don't spell it out.
Yeah, if you don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
The letter collects, here's all the current requirements on, fine, let's
Put it in there.
Put it in there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna note it here.
Yeah, it's fine.
Add
We can do that.
moving.
Or sidewalk.
Yeah.
Or
And the Greenway Trail.
5 foot sidewalk.
Well, you get into construction season.
Okay, I put note in.
We're all.
Here's another one. So, on Rose Street, we had a fence that was put in, that the DRC took a while. There was several cars parked in there was a huge tow truck that was in the back of it. I can't tell you which house number it is.
Like 100 block.
14.
It's near Dwayne's new house, these buildings.
It's a 1400, between 14 and 15. About midway.
Yeah, but anyway. So the issue is there's an enormous tow truck that's designed to pull semis.
Okay.
And so it's not good to have on our roads, especially our bridges, the wear and tear that piece of machinery can do by itself. So we've asked him to move it. And you know, it's like where is he gonna move it? So we're trying to decide, and what we came in our staff discussions is letting him having an agreement with the town to store it temporarily as he uses it in the event parking space.
Saw that.
So, yeah, so we have it down there. He also is willing to help the town in every way to remove RVs, abandoned cars and everything else. And he did remove a car, the RV that was down on Clear Creek.
Yeah.
That's been there for a while. So he removed that. I think the next step, I did create a memorandum of agreement to work with him or to move this down in our event parking space. I would like to do another agreement with him, just letting you know, is like officially working with the town to remove stuff. You know, like you're the tow truck, since he's parked here, we have a large one that can move around. I'd like to do a contract with him.
Well, if he comes across like some good cars, maybe John. I'll actually take them.
On in 30 seconds.
So that's an update.
I don't know.
And the last one is the watershed protection district permit. They have revised it to include the trash rack and the elbow that they've already done. And Jerry is in the process of taking all of our comments and drafting a letter to respond back. So they submitted it in February. We told them that we would try to go as fast as we can. I know it's been a month already. However, to coordinate, to discuss has been difficult because we're also busy. But Jerry does have all of that and he's in the process of drafting a letter. That's all I have.
Excellent.
Excellent. Anybody have questions for Rick?
Not a one.
Okay, moving on. We already did the police report, we did the lodging tax. Just mentioning the Meet the Candidates Night is a week from tonight at 6 p.m. at the Georgetown Community Center.
How you doing?
Yep. Okay, and now, does anybody have anything else that they need to bring up?
No. The executive session under CRS 24-6 402-4B for a conference with the town attorney, town administrator, and appropriate staff to receive legal advice concerning pending litigation, capital prize mine quiet title suit. I further move to adjourn the board meeting with the conclusion of the executive session.
Well spoken, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Excuse me, all in favor, say aye.
Wow, it's